All right, another analysis, part two. Um, a couple things I just want to clarify. So, for your analysis of memories, um, a couple things, and I can't. Can I write in this? I don't know why I'm having trouble filling. Shoot. Okay, I can't figure out how to get a text box in this, so you'll just have to follow along. So a couple things. One is you want to keep in mind, what is the song about? Obviously, like memories, honoring people in your past, thinking back, reflection. That's very vague, quick, But look at the lyrics. What is the song all about? And then ask yourself, how does all of the choices that the artist made support that message? Okay. So, obviously, when it says relaxed groove in the sheet music, I don't think Maroon 5 gives those words. That's somebody else. So be careful that what you attribute to the artist. That's the editor of the sheet music, okay? From a chord progression standpoint, there's our tonic, okay? C major is our tonic. So we are in the key of C. Therefore, is this going to let me draw? No. Therefore, the C chord is the 1 chord. So I can't write a text box, but you can, you'll know it. So that's the 1 chord, which means G is the 5 chord, 6 chord, 3 chord, 4 1, 4 5. Okay, so again, it's major 1, major 5, minor 6, minor 3. Remember these, if they're written that way, you have to write them in lowercase Roman numerals. I, all lowercase. Whereas this is uppercase I, uppercase V. Okay, so 1 5 6 3 4 1 4 5. From a functional standpoint, it's a 4-measure phrase that just simply goes from the tonic C leading to the dominant G. And that is a very traditional, conventional Western music functional chord progression. Okay? In functional harmony, chords have purposes, they have functions. The function of the 1 chord is to feel at home and at peace and to feel resolution. The function of the 5 chord is to feel tension and to feel like propulsion, like movement moving us forward. Like, the song can't stop here, it has to keep going. But when we get to the 1 chord, it's like, oh, okay, now the song can end. So it's just a basic 4-measure phrase from the 1 chord to the 5 chord with all these little twists and turns in the middle, kind of like life. You're born, you die, and there's lots of twists and turns in the middle. Okay, so it's a very was Adam Levine thinking about that when he wrote it? No, probably not. But the effect is we go to the 5 chord, we have it's called a deceptive. It didn't go back to 1. Remember, this 5 chord should lead us back to 1. Instead, it leads us to the 6, which extends the phrase, 3, which also extends the phrase, leading us back to 4, extending the phrase farther, back to 1, but this feels incomplete because it's 4-1, not 5-1, then 4-5, okay? So, there we have it. And that chord progression, if I sift through, I think it continues through the entire thing. So I think it's important to mention that. It's not revolutionary that Maroon 5 and Adam Levine did that. That's pretty common in hip-hop music and couple different genres to have a chord progression that just repeats through the whole song. But it's a choice they made, and I think that kind of looping effect really supports this idea of reflecting on a life or on an experience and the totality of it, that it's just very cyclical, okay? So that's kind of a good way to describe it. This chord progression takes us from tonic, leads us to the dominant, and then by repeating it through the whole song, it's just a very cyclical event. Another thing to point out, we begin with the chorus. How do we know this is the chorus? So this is called the intro, 4-measure intro or 4-bar intro. Then we go to the chorus. How do we know this is the chorus? Because it's the words are repeated and the melody is repeated over and over again. These words never change. So anytime we say, here's to the ones that we got, here's to the, cheers to the wish you were here, that's the chorus, okay? And then it ends with, and the memories bring back you. Then we jump into the verse. Now the verse's melody is slightly different from the chorus melody. Bum ba-da-dum ba-da-dum, bum ba-da-dum 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 ba-da-dum. Okay? Whereas ba-da-dum ba-dum ba-dum bum, ba-da-da-da-dum ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum ba-dum, bum bum ba-dum bum. So it's slightly different, but notice that the rhythms are connected. You'll see a lot of the same rhythms, or you hear a lot of the same rhythms. Okay? In particular, this 8th note, 2 16th notes. That's everywhere. 8th note, 2 16th notes, 8th note, 2 16th notes, 8th note followed by 2 16th notes. That rhythm is pretty consistent throughout. There's a few places where he flips it. Okay? But that's the most important rhythm of this whole song. Bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. Okay, so now we have the verse, same chord progression. Notice that the voice is also pretty much in the same range. It stays in the same range the whole time. Okay? And boom, right there. Now we're back to the chorus. So far it went intro, chorus, verse, chorus. Then right here, then there's a doo-doot, okay? Which is, again, it's the same pitches, same chord progression. It's not the exact same melody, but it's a variation on it. Okay, so it's a little chorus extension. Then we repeat back. Now we get verse 2 here. And the words are very similar, but they're slightly different. Then we do another chorus, the doo-doo extension, and then we end with another doo-doo extension. Memories bring back you. Okay? So the overall form, it went intro, chorus, verse 1, chorus, slight chorus extension, verse 2, chorus, chorus extension again, chorus extension again, but this time with yeah. Okay? Notice that we get to the end. Here, remember how we said the initial chord progression, the 4-bar chord progression? We end on a hanging dominant, 5 chord, okay, uppercase V, 5, which propels us forward. And it never resolves. Every phrase, it's leaning us, how can I explain this? We resolve at the beginning of the next phrase. So it'd be like if every day your math teacher left you with class with a problem and said, solve this, but you won't know if the answer is correct until the beginning of class the next day. I know that's a weird analogy, but so every phrase ends leaving you hanging, and you're not sure, it's not complete, and then the next phrase begins by completing it. And so look at the very end, right? Memories bring back you. So finally there we get that completion. There are no more phrases, and it ends on the 1 chord, on tonic, okay? Ends with resolution. So what would I say are the main elements to talk about in this song? Well, I think the chord progression, the cyclical nature of it, and how it's extremely follows the principles of functional harmony. That's a good catchphrase you can use. This chord progression follows the basic principles of functional harmony, in that we start on the 1 chord. The next chord we hear is the 5 chord. The 1 and the 5 are the 2 most important chords in functional harmony. Then we get distracted or deceived, or we just noodle around. It's extended. The resolution from the tension of the 5 chord is extended, and then we end the phrase still on the 5 chord. So there's still tension at the end of every 4-bar phrase. Okay? How's that tied to this whole song? Well, because life is a perpetuating circle that never really feels like, when is there completion? When is there finality? It's always, you finish one thing and you begin another thing. Okay? Another thing to talk about is the instrumentation. So I think kind of that slight echo, the slight echo or reverb on the guitar gives it kind of that reflective sound. Do you hear you're like, the sound effects in the back, the wind, right? All of those are choices that someone made. Why did they make those choices? Also, notice the rhythm. This isn't like a super sad, I don't want to say it's not a sad song, but they purposely kept the rhythm kind of bouncy with this, we call the word a syncopation when it's off the beat. Bum, bum, ticka ticka bum, bum. And that gives it some good energy. So it does have some forward. It's a very pop sound. Bum, 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 bum. Okay? So I think you can also talk about the rhythm of the accompaniment being offbeat, this chord right here. Bump, offbeat, and bump, offbeat, and bump, offbeat. And that really adds to, that's part of what makes it feel like a pop song. And it also just adds good forward energy, keeping it moving forward. The song would be very different if these chords were on beat 3. It would be more of like a ballad. I also think it's interesting that they choose to have all of the vocals pretty much in the same range. It's a span of about 1 octave from the highest note to the lowest note. But really it sits, 90% of the song sits in the span of just about 5 notes. So there it goes a little bit low, but then it goes right back up. Then it's low, and then look at the verse. So that the whole verse is really just like the span of 5 notes. And then the chorus, it has a slightly wider range. And I don't know what that is about. Again, we never get a super high note, with a lot of energy and tension, like the big build, like you saw in Let It Go, where it has that big, peak moment. And maybe, again, that's just speaking to the kind of reflective nature of this song. Instead of focusing on one big moment of reflection, it's just all these little flashes. Let's kind of... There we go. So we do get some ooh, ooh in the background there. So we do get some new texture there. Make sure you point those out when we get to that point. But yeah, that chorus is almost exactly a cookie cutter of the first one. So it's oftentimes songs will try and add and never have a section be exactly the same. They'll add an instrument, they'll take an instrument away, they'll add backup voices. This one, the texture is pretty consistent throughout. Again, how do you think that connects with the overall message of the song? I think you can spend a lot of words talking about those connections. How does the chord progression connect? How does the vocals connect? And how does the instrumentation connect? All right, hope that helps.